going to ask Teresa or Kate if one of you would volunteer to take the minutes. Have any volunteers? Do I have any volunteers? Oh, Kate, did you say yes? Oh, yeah, you must be on mute. Oh,
Oh, your voice is coming through like very high pitched, like Minnie Mouse, like a yeah. I've never heard that before.
yeah, yeah.
That's a first. I've never heard that.
Kate's just logging back on, so we'll wait a few minutes. Funny, I was having a problem with my internet before, and I called Kate to send me some information there. So it seems like now she's having similar problems. Maybe it's catching.
I have multiple options.
Oh.
Is that better?
Yep,
Okay.
there you go.
Thanks so much. Sorry about that.
Okay, it was unclear. Can you take the minutes?
Yes, I can take the minutes, Rich. No problem.
Okay, thank you. So if you would you just call the attendance?
Sure. Hang on just a second. Sorry. Teresa,
Present.
Juanita,
Here.
Rich,
Here,
Julie. I don't see her on here, and I'm on here. And Gladys. I also show that we have Michelle, Louisa, Mike Weaver, Angela Walsh, Ken is on the call, and of course, Dr. Casimiro.
okay. So it's just Julie that we're missing. Okay, before we start, I'd just like to make an announcement. I've received some constructive criticism relative to perhaps ways that I've conducted the meetings whereby sometimes the dialogue I have with Mike Weaver gets too involved with too details, and I lose the audience that as well as I'm talking to, in addition to Mike, my colleagues here. So what I'm going to try to, taking that into account, I'm going to try to understand and know the audience that I'm talking to, and sort of simplify things. Kate had mentioned an excellent suggestion, and Mrs. Cooper agrees that we should, as a board, have a workshop that gives us an orientation to financial statements, the generalities, maybe basic principles of accounting and things like that. I think that's an excellent idea. I'm not sure we ever had it before, but I certainly think a workshop like that in conjunction with Mike Weaver would certainly be helpful. In consideration to our calendar between now and the end of the year and its fullness, Mrs. Cooper thought that sometime in September or shortly thereafter, we could schedule this particular workshop. So just wanted everybody to know that we're always in a process of looking to further improve our knowledge as to what we're responsible for and to communicate so that everybody can understand the subject matter. I often think I remember when Carol would talk about curriculum, she would use acronyms and I would go crazy because I didn't know what they meant. So I understand the feeling that that's being, expressed and shared. The other comments I want to make is on the agenda, I had a notation on an item called AIS financial reporting. I'd like to eliminate that tonight because Dr. Casimiro had talked about that at the last meeting, and I think there's more information to discuss on that relative to when Tim is available. And then further to that, there's an item not on the agenda that I'd just like briefly to put on, and that would be a budget update by Dr. Casimiro as to possible potential dates to the budget presentations and maybe a board workshop so that we understand the talking points and we're on the same page. Those are my only comments relative to the meeting. And with that being said, I'll turn it over to Mike to go to the first item, which would be the financial reporting for the month of February.
Thanks, Rich. Ken, do you have them or would you like me to pull them up?
Sure. So Mike, start with the narrative as you and I had talked about and the corrections to the narrative so that we can get that out of the way to begin with.
Okay, I will pull them up now.
Mr. Janelli, I just want to let you know that Julie's on the call with us now, okay?
Okay, great. Hi, Julie. How are you?
Hi, my apologies for being late.
No problem. Glad you could make it. Thank you.
Hey, is the summary visible for everybody?
Yes, yeah.
So we try our best to get these out the Friday before this meeting happens. So I hope everyone had a chance to briefly take a look at this. But this month we're presenting the financials through the end of February of last month. For this month, ending February, expenditures fell just where they have. We were at 15.7. There were only 2 payrolls, as there usually is. In this month, particularly toward the end, we've been working on identifying individuals that are being charged incorrectly still. It was mentioned once before, but as we started to go through the budget for this year and see who was charged where by location, we noticed that many people are charged either in the incorrect job codes or the incorrect locations, and in some cases, the incorrect funds. So we've began to identify one by one each of the individuals that are not classified correctly and going through the process of actually getting them corrected in the system, both retroactively and prospectively. So it's a very large lift to go through all 2,000 employees and all the various salary lines, but it's something that really needs to be done. And I just did want to say, although some of the folks are not in the correct locations or the correct job code, in total, in the grand total, in the grand sum, the numbers are correct. It's just the allocation that we're working with. Rich, I shared with you when you came in a little bit about what that process looks like. There are several people involved, but just for the benefit of everyone on the call, the way it works is after we identify an individual that's charged incorrectly, we work with the cabinet to find out where they should be charged. Angela Walsh, who is here on this call, will then reclassify the previous salary expense and the encumbrance of their salary going forward to the correct location. That puts a journal entry in queue for me in the system to review. I then review and approve it, and then it goes to our payroll department to rerun behind the scenes the scripts to actually put them in the right place. So it takes quite a few minutes to run each person, and each of the folks that we're looking at have several salary lines. It's not just their base salary line, but that includes any supplementals that are charged as well. So we're going through daily and identifying those and making the moves.
Okay, so in essence, you're cleaning up a lot of issues that would make the report a little bit more meaningful.
Yes, so absolutely. It will make, I will say that as we move people, and we do have finally, when we do have a set of financials that are correct and accurate, it will be difficult to compare cost center to cost center just because of prior years people were in the incorrect spot. But
Sure.
over the course of time, that will go away.
All right, good. And the other thing that we had talked about, I just want to call to the attention, on your second bullet point where it says year to date, I think maybe the fifth line down, you make a comment that you're looking for the balance at year end to be a break even, which would not necessarily, as I understand it, and we talked about, be the case because of the amount of open positions that are currently available due to supply and demand. So I just wanted.
Yeah, that is a graphical error, Rich. You picked up on it. My apologies. I missed that before it went out. There is looking as of right now to be a favorable variance toward the end of the year. That is due to two things. One is the relocation, as I just spoke about, of staff in and out of grants. We moved several folks out of the general fund into Alliance this year, which will create a positive variance at the end of the year. Additionally, as you mentioned, Rich, we're working with Human Resources to identify all of the open positions and the rates that are driving that. And you may or may not suspect, when we budget for salaries for open positions, we also budget for those benefits, right? It would be silly for us to benefit for salaries and not the benefits if we believe we're going to hire them. So we should see the trend, if it's favorable in salaries due to open positions, there should be a favorable component to health, dental, and vision as well for those positions that are not open. I mean, that are not filled.
At a later date, when Kim is available, I would like to request the number that you feel at the date we discussed this, that is still in the budget, that is available for open positions, and then have Kim talk about the situation currently nationally in terms of the supply and demand and the hiring and retention, stuff like that. So we'll put that off, in terms of number and for discussion at a time when you could agree and Kim could be here to discuss that.
Rich, I
Yes.
see that Teresa has her hand up.
Hi, Teresa.
Hi, I just want to point out, when we had the ESSER grant and we were allowed to charge positions to that grant. So bringing them back to the correct place, I find it kind of almost insulting. I think it would be a better word to maybe back to the original place. But a lot of the monies were transferred because of the COVID relief funds. So I just want to point out, it wasn't any monkey business. It was essentially the monies we got from ESSER that we had a right to charge to. So, and now we're charging other positions to the Alliance grant. So, what happens down the line if that changes? So I would like a better terminology. That's all.
Yeah, no, that is 100% correct, and thank you for pointing that out. The area on this particular summary where I call out ESSER, refers specifically to, I'm not sure, I'm going to test your memory a little bit, but in the beginning of the year, we had a line, it was a salary line, and the line was part-time printing. And for better or worse, when people came out of the ESSER and, as you pointed out, put correctly back into the general fund, I guess John didn't know exactly where to stick them, so he put them in this part-time or PT printing as kind of a placeholder until we figured out where they belonged.
Gotcha, yeah,
Yeah, no,
thank you.
100% right. Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, Teresa, it's not a matter of assuming funny business, it's just a matter of cleaning things up so it's clear.
I understand. I'm sorry for the terminology.
Yeah, no problem. And the last thing, Mike, is I think on the last paragraph you had where you went through and explained the expenses. You and I understand it, and again, you know, without getting too nerdy, if you can briefly help me out and try to interpret what the expenses are here that are not recorded, but have potential liabilities to it.
Yes. So as we receive expenses in that we're obligated to pay, we then and only once we're obligated to pay, we'll put a purchase order, or the system automatically does it, I should say, but the system will put in a purchase order, and that will be in our line that we often see as encumbrances. There are expenses that will most likely come down to coming down the line that will impact us, but we're not currently obligated to them, so we can't quite encumber them, if that makes sense. One of the examples that's frequently used is graduation. So we know that there's going to be a graduating class. We don't know exactly what that's going to look like as far as perhaps tent rentals and things like that. So we know that there's going to be an expense for graduation, but we don't know exactly what it is, and we're not legally obligated to it yet. So I kind of just put that last sentence in there just to say that there are going to be expenses down the road in addition to what we see that aren't quite reflected yet, if that
Right.
makes sense.
And as a PS to that, but will be reflected in the appropriate accounting year when
Yes.
that obligation is incurred.
Yes.
Okay, so that's fine. Okay, all right, that basically was some of my comments on the narrative, and thank you for cleaning it up. If you now want to go to the operating statement and point out anything in that you'd like to discuss, or any topics or items there that you find are watch items that we should be looking for.
Rich, I'm sorry to interrupt. Juanita has her hand up.
Okay, Juanita, go ahead.
Okay, thanks, Mike. I didn't see it on the agenda, so I hope this is the place to ask the question. The non-lapsing account, right now, we're not planning on contributing to that. Is that correct?
For the first year that we were allowed to, that the legislation kicked in, was fiscal year 24. And there was, at year end, at the time we presented the financial, there was about a Rich, correct me if I'm wrong, a $2.1 million favorable variance at the year end.
Right.
And we wanted to move that in. We had the ability to do 2%, which would have been up to 3 million. And I asked that we just wait until the financial audit was complete, because as we saw in fiscal year 23, those numbers are extremely volatile. So there is going to be a surplus for fiscal year 2024. So we will be contributing to that. The exact amount, I'm not sure of yet, but the finance committee will know as soon as we do, and I believe the board will vote on that prior to that being done. For fiscal year 25, which we're in right now, as of February, we're showing a $9 million favorable variance. As I said, we're moving people in and out of the grants to get them in the correct place. So that since as of today, as of March, is going to be coming down a little bit. But there, to the extent that there is a surplus, we'll be able to put up to 2%, which for this fiscal year would be on the 160. So there'd be a maximum of 3.2 million available if there is a surplus to put into the 2% account.
And so Anita, the accounts have been established. It's
Yes.
just that the
Right.
movement of cash hasn't been done, and
Correct.
Kim had pointed out that there were a lot of legal restrictions in terms of this account, so.
Right.
I thought it was simple, you open a checking account, you move the monies in, but it was more complicated than that, so. There was, so you're right, we haven't moved the funds in here, but we do have the capability of utilizing those funds.
Right, and so we have the capability of using that account, but it's not mandatory. And if we do have additional funds, then they might be used elsewhere before putting into that account. Is that a possibility?
I would think so, but
Yeah,
yeah, I would certainly think so, that's our prerogative, so long as it's within the scope of utilizing the funds that are applicable to the expenditure in that year. So,
Mhm.
yeah.
thank you.
So we will see these numbers move as we move people in and out of the grants. Kara, myself, as well as Angela and Juanita will be meeting shortly to just review every grant we have and every person and make sure that the salary lines and the benefit lines are correct in all of the funds.
I thought it was important that in light of the recent favorable adjustment that was found in the 23 audit, that we're showing an experience here at this particular time, a favorable variance, but yet to be further adjusted, and explain that part of this is because of certain practices or certain conditions in the marketplace. So I think it's important that at least we understand that we're going to have, if all things being considered, stay equal, a surplus of X number of dollars because we can't fill these positions.
Yeah, there will be a favorable surplus, favorable variance at year end for salaries and benefits, even if we were to be able to fill the positions 100%, being that we're mid-year, not 100% of their salary is going to be able to reflect. So if we hire someone at a fictitious salary of 80,000, only 40,000 of that would reflect, since we're already halfway through the year, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Um,
Are there any other questions that anybody would have relative to the financial statements as we're discussing?
Rich, I did just want to make one comment after the board, the committee members have a chance to ask questions.
Can I, the transportation is negative at this time?
Yeah, there's a small unfavorable variance in transportation for the year. That is likely due to the encumbrance. If you see the encumbrance line, so that is not only the transportation that we have for our regular buses, it's also for our McKinney-Vento falls in that. There are other purchase services in that, but a large majority of that is transportation.
So in essence, if I understand what Mike is saying, this is another one of those issues where the timeliness of issuing the report versus the clarity as to how to allocate those costs to where they belong sort of lags behind. Would that be correct?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So it's a timing issue, Teresa. At this point here, we're trying to do so much at once, and I don't think our system or our staff can keep up with furnishing something that is is, I want to use the word, but don't get me, correct me to take it the wrong way, accurate, because there are yet entries to be made, you know.
Yeah,
We could, at a certain point, if we want to eliminate this, we can decide to hold off financial statements for a period of another month and do 2 months behind, and by that time, come up with more accurate and defined charges, but that could be a conversation for another time. But right now, unfortunately, and with what Mike has to do and Angela has to do, it's really a timing issue of trying to see what they can get out and then to define certain items that would require further adjustments.
And there's, for some reason, I can't hear you, Rich. I'm sorry.
Okay, what I was saying is I think this is more of a timing issue that in the future, the reports and the systems would be a lot cleaner so that the charges, when they're, the statements when presented to us would be accurate with all of the corrected allocations, as opposed to having a bill from the bus company coming in and charged against one line where it should be charged against special education, or it should be charged against a grant account or something else. So that's what I'm saying. So Mike, always talks about going through and cleaning these things up. It's just a matter of the amount of time they have to do it, and as opposed to the time they have to do this in relationship to when they're trying to present the statements and justify the numbers.
yeah,
Teresa, just so, one of the drivers in the new budget was an increase in the transportation because of, some rising costs and the number of students and the types of transportation that some of our students need. So some of that, we know that that's on the rise, and it seems to be, it's reflected here, but also that's why it became a driver for next year. So that it would be part of a budgeted, a little bit more budgeted based on where we're projecting out where we think we might be. So that one's a moving target because, just yesterday, we had a student who required very specialized busing, very expensive between now and the end of the year, which is fine. It's just that, these things roll in, on a regular basis, and they're a little less predictable than some of the other items.
Thank you.
Yep.
Kara, are there any other questions from the board members on this? Kara wants to make the comment if there were none.
Something on mine.
You're okay?
Yeah,
Richard,
Julie said she had
Oh,
no
I'm sorry.
questions, sorry.
China.
Julie, do you have a question?
She does not, Rich.
Oh, okay. Kara, did you want to then make the comment?
Yeah, just a comment around the staffing. Kim's gonna talk about staffing next Wednesday. She couldn't come tonight, but she is gonna do a little presentation on the staffing. We have over 100 positions that are open, probably closer upward, like maybe 130-ish. I go back and check the list, but tremendous amount of paraprofessionals and tutors, persistent vacancies around science classes, special education openings, some coaches, some media specialists that we didn't backfill because we weren't quite sure where the year was going to land. So there's quite a list of open positions. Some of those have been backfilled with providing period coverage. Some of those have been backfilled with overages, and some we have agency staff. But there are a lot of salaries and benefits that are not going to be utilized this year. So that's something that when Mike was talking about the favorable balance, that's part of it. So, and we keeping an eye on it, but that's something that at least we know, and we're aware of it.
Right, and to that point, I don't want to throw a fly into the ointment, but the knowing that and putting that in the budget is something that we need because these positions are absolutely necessary, and we're currently working at a handicap, which then prevents our kids from being properly educated. But to play devil's advocate, somebody can say, well, we're funding you for this money and you haven't spent it. Therefore, it's like a prepayment, but there may be different solutions to this, which I don't want to get into now, but
Yeah.
you know, it does create some issues which going forward, you know, have answers for, and may be able to
Mhm.
tackle. But that, you know, it's just something that is on a horizon that we're aware of and look to, I guess, negotiate. But Mike, if you would go to the grant schedule, and I want to thank Angela for if there's anybody I can't see the hands, so
Yeah, there is. Oh my gosh, where'd it go?
just then, you know, call out your question if you got your hand up.
Oh my gosh, I can't find my phone. I can't seem to get on.
Rich, I have one quick question, please. I know Michelle's looking for some information, it sounds like.
I'm sorry. Yeah, if I'm unmuted. I can just ask. For some reason, my photo's gone off my screen.
Michelle, yeah,
Rich, thank you. Just quickly, I know that when we were trying to, when we had the shortage of the 10 million and we kind of redesigned the whole district to accommodate for that $10 million, you know, squeeze with the budget. And we had found positions, I think it was like 120 or something that were not filled, but we were paying, I think 51 were staff and teachers. So how far back are we trying to figure out the management of the personnel and where they should be allocated? Because I thought that was part of the recent, you know, redesign, I'm going to call it,
Sure.
for the district. So is this something that, you know, on an average, we're going to expect this much? Or because it just seems that we've gone back and we had found those monies, we kind of repositioned everyone. I'm thinking that takes, you know, looking into their status of where they are and what grant. So I'm just, you know, maybe you could give us a little bit more information on that. You know,
Sure.
I'm not, maybe I missed it. I'm not on finance, but I'd appreciate that. Thank
No,
you.
of course not. No, it's a good question. And we found some duplicates and things where the same position had two job codes, for example. And so that was more back end cleanup that we did, and then we found savings there. So that part was great. And there were some positions that had been posted that we said we no longer need these, right? We either had a new position or a new person took over some part of the responsibilities, or they were spread across different people and things like that. So we're able to clean that up. The what we have right now is, you know, from the topsy-turvy of ESSER funds, right? We went through several years. Don't forget the last couple of years over, you know, I think we were given over 22 million and then another ESSER grant. And every time those grants kind of phased out, you have staff that have to come back and be moved and get put back into the system. And then you have to re-find a new grant or a new home or general fund. And I think, you know, in the last couple of years, Michelle, it was a whirlwind. And so I don't know that a lot of things were, when I actually took the time, I sat with Mike and I was watching with Angela what it takes to move one person in the system. They have to align correctly in HR. They have to align correctly in EGMS, which is a grant system that pulls, and then the funding source on the back end. And then if they have, you know, they could be a coach at the high school, they could have longevity, they could, maybe they're out and they had a long-term sub that also gets tagged to their account. And what we were finding is that, you know, over time, all of these different little line items were coming from different places. And we're trying to bring everything home to a location and nail this down and just get back to a place of stability, because things don't move easily in the back ends of these systems. It's very cumbersome. It requires somebody who really knows the system inside and out, like really intricate. It's not intuitive. I look at it and I get dizzy, and I have to sit with someone from the finance office to do it. So it's very tedious. So you know, this team, and I'm going to give the team so much credit, because the minute that first of all, Mike started the year off with no help. We were thankful to bring on Angela Walsh. We were thankful to bring on Juanita. He's still a little bit short. We're working on that. But all these folks have been doing since the time they stepped in Beaverbrook in their roles as all new, has been audit, a fury of audit. And so as you know, there was a small break in the audits for a moment, and we're really digging into some of the systems that we have and how we're working those things together, but also how we're classifying folks. There's a lot of will to have a location budget, so we can see how much we're spending by a school or by a location. And we've been unable to do that, to produce that in a way that we felt really good about. But because as we reset for 25-26, the goal was to build that for 25-26. But our current system is still based on the old kind of scramble of where these positions have been docked to. And so right now, over the next couple of months, the goal is to rebuild everything. And it's a slow process of retagging every single person, all their little stipends that they get, their longevity, things they're due from a contract 4 years ago, to line those up in the system and to say this person works at Danbury High School, but their funding source is Alliance. This person works at Danbury High School, but their funding source is Title II or it's Title IV. So, and because we kind of forced over time to really over rely on grants, it's not easy for us. I would love if everybody just came out of general fund. That'd be so much easier in the system, but we really have to reclassify every year, and the grants change every year. So next year Alliance is going to go up. So now we've got to take, once we build the budget, now we're going to take more staff and slide those in to different grants that will absorb staff as we have over time. So for us, it's a really tough moving target because of the financial maybe tumultuousness that we've experienced, and that I think we're going to continue to experience for a little bit longer. But the goal is to make sure that this team is on the same page and that they're training together on how to do this, because they're all, like I said, they're all new in their roles. This is a complicated financial system. We've been talking a lot about training, and bringing this team did not have the benefit of Tyler training that we did when we first rolled over to the conversion. So it's another thing we want to do. So as soon as they can come up for air, which they have not been able to, a few of us are going to be staying over the April break to work on some things, but as soon as they come up for air, that whole team needs and wants and has been asking for training, and we're going to get that for them. So there's a lot to this. It's pretty complicated. It's a great question. But the goal is, to build the 25-26 budget in the system. Once we get our allocation from the city, we'll have kind of a little clearer roadmap of what we have to do and where people have to go. Otherwise, we're doing everything 2 and 3 times again, and it's very time consuming. But I appreciate the question, because I feel like I've been waiting to say this for a little bit.
Yeah. May I ask one more question, if you don't
Sure.
mind? The size district that we are, obviously, we've had to, pay for additional help in the finance department. Clearly, that is, as far as I'm concerned, the priority. So we know where we stand, because we keep having surpluses, but yet we can't, we don't pay enough, right? We don't have enough. So
Exactly.
how do we get that? How do we get over that?
Yep.
And is there is the system that we currently have, it's an in-house, like all of the payroll and everything is done in-house?
It
And
is,
is that customary for a district our size? Where is the advantage? I've heard several times over the last few years that we've had some payroll issues or glitches, possibly new systems and so many that I can't even keep up with. But I guess that's my question. Are we, again, trying to Band-Aid a situation? Are there other systems that can, quickly, differentiate what you've got going on? You know what I mean? Just in today's day. Thank you for that.
Yeah. No, we could definitely use more staff. We're working on that. I don't see Mike on my screen. I got to scroll to his face, but he's
I'm
going to
here.
laugh when I say this. I said, Mike needs to he's in the process of hiring an assistant, a secretary, because he has been without one. And what I'm saying to him, you got to put your oxygen mask on first here, so we can continue to do this work, right? Because that office has been stretched. A lot of offices have been stretched. I won't say that that's the only one. The same is true. So we've got to get the finance rounded out, so that we don't end up in this position. It's actually more costly if we don't staff appropriately. And that's that operational efficiency thing that you guys have heard me say from time to time. The same thing with HR, in terms of the ability to recruit and be responsive and onboard in a way that keeps up with the turnover that we're experiencing. We haven't right-sized some different offices around. And last year, when we tried to kind of balance out where the cuts came from, we dipped into central office, and it hurt tremendously. So, it's one of those things that's pay now, pay later. And yeah, we closed the budget, made it balanced, but in the back end, we're less efficient. People are, quite frankly, very stressed out. And, you know, we're trying to retain people. And when you invest a lot of time and energy, like when I invest in this finance team to have all that, you know, very high quality but expensive training, I want to make sure that they stay with us, you know. So, and that we have to make sure that that office can handle what's being asked of them, and as well as the other offices that are doing similar high volume work right now.
Thank
Kara,
you.
if I could just jump in to add on to that, Michelle, you know, I came from outside of education, and one of the first things that John had tasked me with was to look at payroll, because as you mentioned, it was a little bumpy when I first came on. And, you know, wearing my typical industry hat, I said, I'll roll up my sleeves, I'll fix this, I'll bring in, you know, an outside payroll. We did. I went to 3 or 4 different vendors, Paychex, UKG, ADP, and I think one other one. I had in-depth conversations with them about how we work in our systems and how they interface, and how they might be able to offer solutions to us. I think it is customary for districts to use their own in-house. And I think that's a function of the software that we use. We use Tyler Tech, and that Tyler Technology is a huge publicly traded company. They have many different products, and they're all throughout municipalities, and that's kind of how they're built. So I met with these companies, and I took the top 2 or 3 and I brought them to Kara, and I said, hey, can we just at least give them an opportunity to see what an outside company could do for us, and how they might interact with not only the finance payroll part, but we're plugged into the Tyler part that's human resources and recruiting and all that. And at the end of it, we came to the conclusion that it may very well be something that's cost-wise, break even, perhaps a little bit more expensive, but it would completely tear apart the entire system that we had. And in the end, the payroll system said, we can only guarantee you accuracy of the files that you give us. And that's kind of where we were struggling. So
Okay,
sort of a
yes.
garbage in, garbage out kind of situation.
Yes.
So we went back to the drawing board, and I'm proud to say, since at least July,
Don't say it.
I don't have any wood to knock on, but since July, we've been
Hope is
doing
good.
much better.
Okay, good. Thank you, Mike. Thank you very
And
much.
to add to that, Michelle, a big part of what we're going through is the issue that we've had, a lack of consistency or continuity
Yeah.
in our finance department.
Yeah.
Which created this issue where every time we get a new finance person, they're coming in cold, not knowing what the previous person has done, and it's creating the issues. And as you can, you know, hear, and as you remember a couple of years ago, I forget the timing, the horrendous problems we had in payroll. So the decision was to go with Tyler. Mike explained the relationship between that. What Mike has done too, the Tyler system is good, it's powerful, but it's not all perfect. As the case in point, Mike has made it a lot better by these account codes, which you can break out, Tyler patient codes, departments, et cetera. But one of the idiosyncrasies are that if Rich Ginelli is a teacher in school A, and for 2 days a week he teaches in school B, and you want to keep the records straight, then you got to charge school B. That requires some sort of a manual intervention to move it from A to B. You know, we're not at the point at this point here where that's automated. So a lot of that minutia, where we're trying to build to a better record keeping situation, is not done. So we know the limitations, and we're looking to work around them. But it's, you know, it has to be prioritized. You know, we're trying to put out.
I'll just add one last thing, and then I talked a lot tonight, but you know, Michelle, and for everybody on here, just our finance group and our board, we have to do a lot of work to restore the confidence in the taxpayers. We know that, and I can tell you right now, we're having some great conversations about really looking at our systems and digging deep to say, where else can we improve? How can we do this? How do we build this team up together so that the communication, you know, is strong? How do we, you know, what are the red flags? You know, how do we not miss something again? Like, how do we, even though we went through 4 CFOs, Mike is our 5th in a very short period of time, what are the questions that we need to ask, and what are the things that I need to do and everyone else, so that we don't end up in this situation, again. So we're putting ourselves through the paces on this, to make sure that we get the training, and that the things that we're doing on the back end, we're doing them well and right, and we're not just trying to throw it together to get through another financial year. Like, we have to set a strong foundation, so that every year it's more tweaking instead of like blowing up the house and starting over again. So that's kind of just, that's something that we're working on.
And the other thing too is so that Mike doesn't repeat the revolving wheel of the hamster that he did last year, is to get him more professional help, so that he can direct them to resolve the issues that we have, and those issues being cleaning up these accounts and looking at the current budget, et cetera. So, I think we're making progress. It's going to take some time, but I think we're on the right track. I think we know what we're doing. It's just a matter now of having the manpower within, and doing that within an accelerated period of time, so that we all can feel comfortable that we're starting at ground zero to move forward. I hope that, it was a good question, Michelle. I hope that,
Yes, thank you. Yeah, I
Sure.
appreciate it. And I'm excited to hear about the payroll and the adjustments. I have a good friend who works in the system and has complained about this person's getting paid. So the fact that we are addressing it and we're having this conversation is exciting, because I know that conversation is taking place in the community, in our district. So, we're moving forward. That's very
Yep.
important. So thank you for all the effort.
That's the important thing. On the grants that are part of the financials, I do want to thank Angela for the 2 types of reporting. To my preference would be the second type, which I say the second type, I think would be pages 7 through 10, which breaks these grants down by classification. And it gives a tremendous amount of information relative to expiration, who handles it, et cetera. So I would, make a recommendation to perhaps at the next board meeting, if the board or the finance people would let me know which of these reports they prefer to have, whether it be one or the other, or still a combination of both. That certainly would be helpful. The only thing I'd like to ask Angela is, at that point in time, and maybe at the next board meeting, if on those items that show federal grants, if you can just asterisk those and come up with a subtotal, or put a little footnote in to how much money that is, because one of the agenda items is for Kara to talk about grants, and in totality, I just like to see how much money are federal grants.
Mike, if you could just move that up a little,
I'm not even
The
sure
total is there.
what you, is this the,
on the new format,
this one?
if you can bring it up a little bit more, right here,
Okay.
10,000,007. That's current year plus the carryover.
No, that's not the total.
For federal.
Oh, just for federal? I'm sorry.
Yep.
Oh,
The
okay.
state is above it and miscellaneous is on the next page.
I got you. Okay, I missed it. That's great.
We're trying to do some revisions. We have till like May 1st. That's another big project. We have a lot of staff in the grants, that some of those staff members that are vacant are also in the grants. So, it's hard to, once you set a grant, you have to kind of spend it according to the plan, and then you got to get approval for revision. So we don't have a lot of man help on this end as well. I'm trying to also do these as well as some of the other folks that are listed, but trying to go through to see what lines have been spent already and unpack that in each one of these, and then see if we can get approval for revisions, so we don't lose the salary and benefits that go with those grants for the people that we're not that are not coming out.
And you know what it was, Angela, when I picked up the hard copies in the office, I didn't have all the schedules available, so that's why I missed, I asked for the
Okay.
information that was in front of me, but that's.
Yeah, no problem.
Yeah, thank you.
Angela, thank you for including the page numbers too.
Yeah, this looks
And
great,
let us know.
Angela.
Yeah, the page numbers help.
you.
That
Thank
was
you.
that was a difficult one.
And this is such a quick turnaround time from the discussions that the committee members had relative to the comments they had on the grants, wanting to see who's responsible, the time period and stuff like that. So I think it was a worthy discussion. The turnaround time to fulfill the information for the committee members was terrific. So I thank you again. It's really good. Do any of the committee members have any comments on the grants?
You were saying you wanted us to choose the format between this and what? And the other one, the last time?
Well, there were two types. One was a general one, and the other was classified by the category.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and subtotals. But like this one here, doesn't really, this was like the original one. But from this, we got a little bit more creative and said, could we get this, this, this? So it evolved to the next type of format that we had.
I like the last one.
Yeah, I concur. And maybe if we can just take a quick consensus now, to most of the committee members agree that the schedule that's on the screen now is the one that we'd like to have.
I do.
I do.
I do.
Okay, great.
Is
Julie?
Julie?
I do.
Okay, thank you. So makes it easy. And in the future, then eliminate the other one and just stay with this.
Yeah,
Okay, thank you again.
thank you.
Okay, so moving to the next agenda item was the issue of the federal funds. And what I meant by that was if Tara can pretty much give us an update. She explained a little bit at the board meeting, but things change daily as to what her feeling is at this point here. Is anything been decisive that federal government is going to penalize us or take away any funding from us?
So-
We know
so-
at this point.
Sorry, Richard, I didn't mean to cut you off. So my meeting with the state is Friday, is this Friday.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah, I'll know more. I did happen to reach out to a couple of superintendents. I talked to the superintendent in Stamford. They are in the same similar crossroad. And, the way that she approached it, and you have to get permission, I guess, but that school, she kept them on, she's just on a corrective action plan. They have reduced revenue from the number of students that they're able to get. And she started to just let in the Stanford students because she was in the same boat. She's like, how can I justify having an under-enrolled school? And so they took the hit on the reimbursement. And I think they're kind of gradually just going year to year on it. So my conversation Friday is really going to be, what does, if we do an off-road, come off, how do we off-ramp ourselves from the model? Or can we stay on it and have a slow burn and continue, but still maintain some of the revenue that's coming in? And then, are there penalties associated with that if we do it that way? And then, one way or another, whatever we do, it has to be gradual. We cannot just flip the school, send students back to their home. We have a commitment to those students to see them through, that we have agreements, participating town agreements and MOUs that we need to honor. And, if we ever do anything in the future, those towns will not likely do business with us if we don't, treat folks fairly in this process. So, and also we need to be able to add the lost revenue in, would actually be a driver in subsequent future, budgets to come. So we would have to gradually absorb that. Now, could we, absorb that with some things next year? Yes, we're going to have to. But we also have space issues in other schools and things. So there, some of our problems in other places can be solved with, with the potential open space at AIS. So we're exploring that. I'll know more after Friday.
Okay, and so you were talking about specifically AIS situation, correct?
Just the AIS. Yeah.
Okay, my question was related to the federal government and the DEI.
I'm
type
so
of thing.
sorry.
Yeah, no, they were both related, and
Yeah,
so it's maybe we could hold that up until next week until you come back with the state, but it's just, to me, you hear so much and you get confused on the national level, what they're doing with federal funding, et cetera, and, you know,
it changes every day.
Yeah.
Something gets issued and then 2 days later, somebody claps back with, nope, that's not correct. We're gonna, we have a stay, in executing this. So it's hard to keep up with.
Yeah.
We were riding the roller coaster. I'm sitting back a little bit and just like, let's wait for some of this to flesh itself out, without knee jerking. We have 10 million in federal grants is our exposure. And I think, there are a couple things on there that I think, they're actually more at the state level that are red flaggy for some of the things like our increasing educator diversity grant, which is, I think we have 2 of those for like 240 something thousand. Those are kind of the question mark ones where we're like, should we be spending this money? Do we have, should we keep going forward with this? We're just moving forward. And the other questions around some of our other grants is we don't really see anything in there that says that we are making decisions based on race. So we think we're good. I mean, we have a policy around equity that we might need to, tweak some language but we we can talk about that in policy next time we get together. But if we ride this wave too much of the changes, it'll drive everybody nuts. So we're just trying to breathe through it as it comes and, just at least know where our exposures are.
great. So in essence, when it becomes more definitive, you can keep us abreast.
Correct.
Okay, thank you. The next item that we don't have on the agenda, but I wanted to add was a quick update from Dr. Casimira on the budget, as to the budget update, which to me meant what timetable or what dates we have to make presentations, perhaps the possibility of a board workshop to understand her presentation now and to have more talking points so that us as a board are all on the same page. So can you talk a little bit about that, Kara?
Sure. So we have, at the board's pleasure, we have a date that's tentative for March 26th is still a hold date. We have a board meeting at 7 o'clock and we have a tentative hold, which is a community conversation at 6 o'clock beforehand. If we wanted to continue to utilize that to do a presentation in the community, perhaps maybe a Broadview might be a great location, then maybe we could have the board meeting. If you have the board meeting at Broadview in the library, we've done that before, convenient site, and we can invite the public in for to hear the presentation, in a live format. We've certainly done that live in the board meeting. We've done a couple of some video. We did CDY-PTO, so there's a video that has been circulating around. So we could certainly do one on the 26th at the board's pleasure. We also, just for timeline's sake, that would be just prior to the mayor releasing his overall numbers for the entire city. And then we would be presenting at ad hoc the 3rd week of April. So timing wise, I think, we would be presenting before the mayor presents his budget, which would be probably one of the last opportunities to do so.
I thank you. I'll leave that to you and Gladys to work
And we
out.
were going to talk about that in community conversations, I believe.
Okay, great. Thank you. That being the case, that concludes the items that were on my amended agenda. Are there any, to the committee members, are there any questions that the committee members had or any of the administration regarding? If not, are there any questions from any of the non-committee members that want to make a comment or have any questions?
I just have a question, and it's either for Superintendent or Angela or Mike. And going through this, the documents that were sent out, could you explain to me the difference between looking at page 2, page 4, and page 7, the difference in those three accounts that's identified as curriculum development?
Yes.
Are
what-
those the same accounts?
Page 2.
Page 2,
Okay.
I think it's up at the top.
Yep, I
Page
see.
4
Okay.
and page 7. We have curriculum development.
Gonna pull it up, Mike?
Yes. So, let me share my screen.
And I'm anticipating, I thought curriculum just came up under one umbrella, and that's why I need you to enlighten me.
Yes, so this is page 2, curriculum development is right here. You'll see this maybe you can see it, it's very small.
Yeah, I have the copy at home.
Okay, 51021. This the wording curriculum development is something that we put in there. That's just kind of a description. The 5-1 indicates that this particular account is a salary account.
Okay,
So there must be a position that at the time that they set the system up, they wanted to call that position curriculum development.
okay,
If I go to page 4, I think you said it was.
yeah, page 4.
At the top, the first one, you'll see 5.3. So this is curriculum development as it relates to a professional service. So perhaps we pay a third-party vendor for some curriculum development. So it's not really a W-2'd employee, but it's a person that we hire as maybe a 1099. They would fall in this 5.3 category.
Okay,
And then you said page 7.
page 7.
Good thing they're numbered. So page 7, curriculum development. This list is a summary. So curriculum development, you'll see again, this is the 5-1. So this refers to the salary of curriculum development. The 00 is indicating that it's a summary across all district. So this is for the entire district. It's kind of just restating it.
Okay,
And you'll see that, so this should be also, you should see the 5.3 if you go further down. You'll see it again. So this is the summary for curriculum development so this report is just a different report. This is showing it by month as opposed to total, but the 5.1 is salaries and the 5.3s are professional services.
okay, thank you very much.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you, Mike. And
Yes.
Mr. Cooper, just before I call a motion to adjourn, I just want to say how good of a job I did because I'm 4 minutes over the 1 hour mark.
Rich, can I just add one thing quickly?
You're gonna ruin my record. Go ahead.
I'll keep it under 59 seconds. So as we go through the financials and we're trying to determine what our positive and negative variances are, we are looking very closely at our purchase orders, so our accounts payable system. Teresa, this is something that you've brought up at least twice, and I couldn't agree more. As we were going through the audit, in fact, we found that $1.4 million, that was a purchase order that should have been looked at and closed. So we are now going through the exercise, I believe, for the first time in the district, where we are looking at all open purchase orders, making sure that one, that they're valid, and if they're open standing purchase orders, that the amount that's in there is still the best estimate that we have. We're going through that now, and any purchase orders that can be closed are going to be closed, and we're starting that right now. Dr. Casimiro has given everyone by the April break to get that done. And following the April break, then I get to drop my hammer and go through the list and make sure everyone did it. And we're going to do that then on a rolling basis, perhaps quarterly to start.
Wonderful news. Thank you, thank you.
Teresa, that's something that has been, practice that has been loosey-goosey, so we're tightening that right up.
Yeah,
And it goes to express the point that we know in the past there have been some differences, but as we learn these particular issues, we look to correct them so that we are moving in the right direction.
I realized the last couple of years, I came in on COVID. Everything was topsy-turvy, and I understand it's getting back to normal now.
Good.
So
Return
thank
to
you.
normalcy.
Can
Yes.
I get a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Oh, wait, hang on a second. Before we move that motion, can we make a motion to recommend the February finance report to the full board?
You're right.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. And now the motion to adjourn.
I make the motion to adjourn.
Second.